everyone, this is Dawn. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make this card using Little Buddies and a sentiment from the August Stamp of the Month. The Stamp of the Month you can purchase for $5 with any $50 purchase in my online store. I'm also going to be using a piece of timber paper and the multi-square windows thin cuts and a retired embossing folder called Subway Tiles. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to use the soft side of my Versamat for stamping, and I'm just going to pick out 4 of these Little Buddies to stamp, and I'm using vanilla cardstock and black ink to stamp with because I'm going to color them in with the tri-blend markers. So I'm just choosing which guys I want to use and mounting them on little 1x1 blocks. Sometimes it's hard to decide. They're all so cute. Really, any choices you make are good. So a couple of them I hadn't used before, so I'm seasoning them with a multi-fiber cloth, and you just rub it until they look a little cloudy, and then they're ready to start stamping. So I'm going to stamp them on this vanilla cardstock and space them out so that I can trim them out in 1 1¼ by 1¼ squares to be able to mount behind the multi-windows. There's a couple of different ways you can use the multi-windows, so I thought I'd show another option. Okay, so I've got my stamping done on the vanilla, and I'm bringing in some, that's the light side of Gold Rush and then Canary. So I wasn't sure which color I was going to want to use, so I thought I'd stamp my sentiment on both. Okay, so now I'm ready to color, and off screen I'm going to color these guys in. So I'm done with that, and then I'm going to trim these down to 1¼ by 1¼ squares. And I'm kind of trimming them so that the image is centered on each of those 1¼ squares. They don't have to be perfectly centered, but it's important to make sure that the squares are 1¼ square because you need enough overlap to be able to have the Little Buddies show in the 1-inch windows that the multi-square windows thin cut creates. Okay, so now we have all those guys trimmed out, and I'm going to take a piece of paprika, and I'm cutting this at an A2 size card size, which is 4¼ by 5½. And then I'm going to bring my big shot in, and I'm going to emboss this paprika cardstock with the Subway Tiles embossing folder, and I think it kind of looks like bricks. So yes, it is retired, but just a little sneak preview, there is going to be another option to do this type of looking card in the next catalog, so stay tuned for that. So you'll have another embossing folder that you'll be able to purchase. Not bricks, but something else. Okay, so now I'm cutting out the multi-windows, and I'm using the wood grain paper from Timber. And then this banner die is also a retired die, and you can hand cut it, and you'll see what happens later on. And I probably should have just hand trimmed it anyway, but I'm cutting this one out using the thin cut. Just figuring out the best placement. And that's everything with the big shot. Okay, let's start assembling our card. I'm going to use a side fold A2 card. The first thing I'm going to do is ink my embossed piece. Sometimes you get a little cracking, especially with a newer embossing folder, sometimes the cardstock cracks a little bit, and with the white core it shows, and I didn't want the white to show. So I'm just using a blending brush and toffee ink and paprika ink to kind of blend over those embossed edges. And also it kind of gives the embossing a little bit more definition when you ink it like that. And now I'm going to trim my multi-square window down to just 4 squares showing. And then I'm going to use aqua Tombow glue and glue my little guys inside each of these squares. So I like the aqua glue because if any seeps out, it will dry matte, as opposed to some of the other glues that dry shiny. So you won't be able to see it if some of it seeps out. And I'm just figuring out where I want each one to go. As it turned out, the colors were pretty similar, so let me get some variation on color there. I think the giraffe is my favorite. He's so cute. So we'll get these guys down. Okay. And then I'll put my embossed piece on my card front. And I'm just going to glue it direct. There is enough flat surface on the back of this embossed piece to be able to just connect it directly instead of popping it. And then I'll be able to pop my window. So I have a piece of craft foam and I'm measuring out my window there. Turns out it's 2 3/4 by 2 3/4, so I'm just kind of eyeballing it and cutting my craft foam at 2.5 by 2.5. And I'll glue that down with the white Tombow. It's a thicker glue, a little more tack to it, so it works with the craft foam, I think, a little bit better. And I'm just going to put that on my card front. Okay, so now my sentiment, I felt like it was a little too wide, too tall. So I'm just kind of figuring out, and I want to use some of that gold shimmer trim as well. So I'm going to trim down my banner and just take a little bit off the top and the bottom. And just see if it works. Get that in there, and that's a little bit better. And then I'm just eyeballing it with the measurements on the shimmer trim. Just figure out what I think looks good, and then I made a banner on the end of that one as well. And it is self-adhesive. So I have that down, and then I'll just glue down my sentiment as well. And then the last step, of course, need more bling, is some of these gold gems. I'm just going to scatter a whole bunch of those around. So this stamp set, Little Buddies, is available until the end of August in my online store. And I will make a list of all the supplies with links in the description below. There's my finished card. It turned out so cute. I appreciate you watching my video today. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. I'd appreciate it. And thanks for watching.